Hi, I'm Susan Cranston, and I'm the host of Authentic You, a talk show that features real people in our community who have made career or life changes that aligns more with their authentic self and takes them on a journey that often leads to new beginnings. Have you ever been in a situation or know of someone whose parents had a dream for them, saw a vision of what their education and what their future would be like, but that didn't necessarily align with what they wanted or what you wanted? So what is that like? What is that experience like when you find yourself pursuing a career or pursuing education that doesn't necessarily completely light you up or give you energy or help you feel that you're doing what your life's purpose is? How do you deal with that? And what do you do when you're in a situation where you don't want to disappoint your parents? Well, my guest today is someone who I always consider one of the smartest people I know. Her name is Popy Dimoulas Graham, and she has 10 years of experience in research and consultation as an epidemiologist, and she holds a master's degree in that and also in collaborative international developmental studies. And she has been working with the government of Canada doing outbreak research, and just has a fabulous science background and pursued that quite extensively. But is that really what she wanted to do with her life? Well, we're going to find out more as I interview her and get insights and perspective on where she really wanted to go and what she wanted to do. The interesting thing too is, as we talk to Popy and share her story, we'll realize that there's so many resources and people in our community who've taken a leap of faith and made changes to really align with what their strengths are, what their interests are, and what will fuel them and give them energy. So I'm absolutely delighted to introduce Popy today. Popy's also someone who I met through Charity Republic and through Ignite Charity, and she put on an event that really crystallized and galvanized people in our community to focus on volunteerism. So without any further ado, I'd love to introduce you to Popy Dimoulas Graham. Hi, Popy.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
I'm so delighted you're here. Now, you have a really interesting story. Your parents really felt that you should have the best possible life and the best possible education, and that involved really focusing in on a study in science and getting the master's degrees that you do have. Tell us a bit about what that was like for you in terms of your journey in the sciences and how how you proceeded in that regard.
You're right. I know my parents always wanted the best life for me. They came to Canada as immigrants and wanted a better life for their children. So naturally, they thought, you need to go into a profession where you're almost guaranteed a job so that you have stability for life. And so they guided me into the sciences, and I just happened to be pretty good at it. So I have an honors science degree and a master's degree in epidemiology, as well as international development. And I realized quite early on, I knew it wasn't the right fit for me, but I had a sense of obligation to my parents. And, of course, when you're trying to decide what career path to go down, you rely on the adults in your life. For sure. And at the age of 17 or 18, we were trying to decide, what am I going to do for the rest of my life? You often don't know. So I got the degree, worked in the health sector for over 10 years, but I always had a nagging feeling that it just wasn't the right fit, and that there was always void, even though I had a stable job and it sounded like it was exciting. I was a senior outbreak epidemiologist, and don't get me wrong, I enjoyed it, but there was something missing.
And there were some things that happened in your life that you mentioned that you've been surrounded by people who've been, either struggling through or dealing with illnesses.
Yes.
And in some cases that was cancer or other medical conditions, and that in many cases they didn't get to live the life that they wanted to or pursue their dreams, and that perhaps was a catalyst for you. So can you tell us a little bit about that and sort of what caused you to make the shift and do what you're doing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So my father-in-law was diagnosed with cancer, with colorectal cancer, and he was of the opinion that when I retire, this is what I will do. So I will travel, I will, fulfill the dreams that I put on hold for so long until retirement. And so that never happened for him. And I'm going to get a little emotional.
Take your time. It's a difficult moment when you're dealing with a situation like that and you see someone who isn't able to fulfill their dream, but you've done so much. You've done, if I can count, I think it's even more than on both hands the number of organizations that you volunteered with. And I think you're involved now with at least 6 charities. Is that correct?
I would say so. I lose count.
You lose count. There's so many of them right now.
Yeah, there are. But really, ultimately, I realized I didn't want to wait until I was in my 50s or 60s to figure out what my dreams were. And I really wanted to fulfill those dreams earlier.
And I think you're doing that. You've done so much for our community. And I'd like to
Thank you.
talk a little bit about that if we can, and talk about Charity Republic and what you do with that and how that really does align with your authentic self.
Absolutely. So when I went to high school in this community, but moved away and came back, and I was looking for volunteer opportunities because I love to volunteer. And I realized what I wanted was to hear from other volunteers about their experiences. And there was nothing else out there other than asking my friends, my family, and my colleagues, going to the websites of charities and, reading up on the organization. So what I created was an online forum where volunteers could share their volunteer experiences with a charity or nonprofit, similar to TripAdvisor for volunteers, or like a third-party testimonial website. That helps people find volunteer opportunities.
Find their volunteer. That's fantastic. So stay with us, and Popy is going to share more information about Charity Republic, and also give us some tips around how to talk to family members when our dreams are a little bit different than what they have in mind for us. So stay with us. We'll be right back. Hi, and welcome back to Authentic You. I'm Susan Cranston, and I'm here with Popy Dimoulas Graham, and she's telling us all about how she made a change in her career from being an epidemiologist to focus on her volunteerism efforts and helping people find ways to volunteer in our community, but also internationally, globally, looking for any kind of volunteer opportunity. You were talking about the website and how it's sort of like TripAdvisor. Can you tell us just a bit more about it and also share the URL?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find Charity Republic at charityrepublic.com.
That's easy.
Pretty easy. And essentially, it's a volunteer review site similar to something like TripAdvisor, a third-party testimonial website. But it's all about volunteerism, so it's all about promoting volunteerism in our community as well as abroad. And we're working on some exciting new projects, initiatives, such as a new volunteer hour application for high school students, such that we're kind of getting rid of the current paper-based system and making it electronic and offering schools and school boards analytics related to what students are doing.
That's going to be fabulous because students need to be able to track that and track their hours. And right now it is a paper-based system. So is what you're saying you're actually creating an application that they'll be able to do that all through Charity Republic and track their hours, right? How many do they need? About 30 hours? Is
40.
That 40? Okay.
And for some programs, 150.
All right. So when they're looking at volunteer opportunities and they're checking out the site and they're seeing the reviews, like you said, similar to TripAdvisor, what are things that you would recommend? Let's say I don't know where I might want to volunteer. What would you recommend that I look for or perhaps even avoid when I'm considering a volunteer opportunity?
Yeah, in terms of what to look for, first of all, determine, what are your interests? Do you want to work with children? Do you want to work in the poverty, in a sector that works with homeless people? Really determine what's your passion, what do you want to get out of the experience? Do you want it to be a fun event? And if you're looking for a fun event, then there are tons of opportunities. Do you want it to work with women? So really, first and foremost, you need to have a better understanding of what you're looking for. And then I would say go to the website, read what other volunteers are saying about organizations in the community to figure out which organization would be a good fit for you.
That's great. What if I only have like maybe an hour a week to volunteer, a month? What would you suggest for that? Is there on your site, does it provide that kind of information to give you a sense of, time commitment or what's required?
Well, if you want to volunteer an hour a month or an hour or two, there are plenty of opportunities in the community. Again, you can go to the website, read what people are saying about their experiences, and then determine, whether that particular event, for instance, especially if you're looking for 1 or 2 hours a month, or if that particular organization would be a good fit based on your needs.
Okay. That's helpful. So what are some of the things that someone should maybe be concerned about or worry about when they're considering a volunteer opportunity? Are there any charities that you'd say a certain type of person might not be a great fit for this? Or are there, a specific example is some people are worried about a lot of overcommitting to something or something being really disorganized and they're not really sure, they maybe have a bad experience and that might sort of taint them from proceeding with the volunteering again. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, well, that's one of the great aspects of the website because you're actually hearing from other volunteers about their experiences. So for some organizations, we have over 40 reviews.
Okay.
So from reading 40 reviews, you get a really good sense of whether that organization would be a good fit or not. I mean, if you don't particularly like to work with animals, then animals are, particular organizations might not be suited to you, but yeah.
Stay away from the llama.
Yeah, or the donkey, whatever.
The donkey, whatever it might be. That's really good.
Yeah.
So another question I have for you is, what do you see a year from now? What's the future of Charity Republic?
Yeah, well, I definitely see our volunteer hour application taking off. We're looking to pilot the application in the next month or so with a school board, hopefully a local school board, and we're working with the local Volunteer Action Center to incorporate volunteer opportunities into the database, and then we're wishing for all the best in terms of the success of the pilot and incorporating any feedback that we get during the pilot. And success to me would be having the application being used by over 700,000 high school students in Ontario.
Wow, that's fabulous. You know, I think there's such a need for it, and I feel very confident that you're going to have great success.
Thank you.
So I'd love to have you back a year from now, and we'll talk about how the app has gone. So looking back since you started Charity Republic, can you talk a little bit about when you actually started it, and just reflecting on what you would have done differently along the way in terms of starting a nonprofit like this?
Yeah, so when I started Charity Republic just over 2 years ago, let me think back. Definitely, it's evolved, right? So you realize as you work in the community and you develop relationships and meet people, you realize that there may be other challenges that need to be addressed. And that's how we've kind of evolved from a volunteer review site, and now we're incorporating other features such as the volunteer hour tracking, such that students can track their hours, and when they're done, they can reflect on their experiences. So one thing I've learned is that you need to be very flexible, very, very open to change, and to adjust to the needs of the market and the people in the community.
So staying really tapped in, connected, being flexible, being able to maybe reshift your perspective. What happens sometimes is people tend to fall in love with an idea or their concept, the original sort of kernel of what they wanted to do. And that can be a deterrent if things change or they get feedback. So that's great to know.
Absolutely.
What are you most proud of when you think about Charity Republic and where you've come with it?
I am most proud of, from a personal perspective, it changed my life. Because I got to meet people like you in the community, and little Maddie, your daughter, and it's just opened up my world. I feel very fortunate because I get to be creative, I get to be innovative, I get to be an entrepreneur, and I work in different worlds. I work in the charity world, I work in the technology world, and now in the education space, and I'm just learning so much. I couldn't ask for anything more.
That's fantastic. And you know what's really interesting to me? I want to come back to the original question we were talking about. Your parents having a dream for you and pursuing the sciences and shifting gears and pursuing a pretty radically different path for yourself. When we talked about that, and what I'd like to ask you is really, what advice would you have for someone who may be in a similar situation, not wanting to disappoint their parents, but they also want to think about, their happiness, their future. When you say things like, it's changed your life, it's opened up so many doors for you, so many great experiences, that's really a profound statement or observation. So what advice would you have for someone that may be looking to have that kind of conversation with their family?
Well, first, I think that someone needs to sit back and really think about what is it that they want from life. And if they're currently in a situation that they're unhappy, why? Is it your career? Maybe it's not your career. But if in fact it is your career and there is another passion in your life that you want to pursue, then I would say do your research, talk to a lot of people, especially if you're considering being an entrepreneur. It's not easy. I can tell you that. It's not easy being an entrepreneur. But that's okay. It's a great fit for me. And so what people need to determine is what is a great fit for you. And make the decision, just do it. I think I mentioned it to you before. Yes. You don't want the paralysis of analysis.
No.
Don't overanalyze things, but at the same time, make sure that you do your research. And when you want to approach someone like your parents, I mean, I'm at an age where I don't need to get permission anymore. No. So I did, yeah. I think they're at a space now where they know I'm at a good place. I have a great husband, a great home, and great family, and
you're doing what you love.
I'm doing what I love, and they just want me to be happy.
That's fabulous. Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
We'll be right back, and we're going to ask Popy a few more key questions. So stay with us. We'll be back in a moment. Hi, I'm Susan Cranston, the host of Authentic You. Welcome back, and thanks for joining us. I'm here with Popy Dimoulas Graham, who is an epidemiologist turned volunteerism guru, who is the goddess of Charity Republic in terms of making sure that people know about fabulous volunteer opportunities in our community, nationally and internationally. And Popy, I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about a situation when you actually felt that you were ready to make that jump from the career as an epidemiologist to pursuing something that really focused on what you're doing now with Charity Republic. What was that like?
Yeah, well, I felt something was missing, and I knew that volunteering always fills a void for me, always just helping people in the community, just helping me grow as a person as well. So what did it feel like when I knew?
Yes.
Scary. Because, you invest so much into a certain career, and, in terms of schooling and the number of years and the building of that resume.
And the financial investment too, right?
The financial investment, and it's like you're starting all over again. So it's a bit scary, but exciting too.
Well, you're pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Yes.
So who was there to help you? Who was there to motivate you and say, Popy, you can do this. I believe in you. Go for it.
Definitely my husband is a huge support.
That's good.
Yeah.
It's good to have your husband be supportive.
Yeah, he's extremely supportive. And that's really important from a lot of aspects, the emotional aspect, the financial aspect, because, you're losing a salary in your family. Yes. And so I would say he was definitely my anchor.
Was there anyone that, and knowing Mac, he's a great guy, and I can see him being right there for you saying, honey, it's going to be fine. We're going to work it out. Live your dream. Do what you want.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
He's a wonderful man, and that's so important to have.
Yeah.
But was there anyone that sort of mentored you along the way, or people that you could go to and say, you know what, you're doing something in this space. Do you have some advice for me? Were you able to seek out anything like that, or did you really just go it alone?
At first, I pretty much dove in. And in retrospect, definitely I'm giving others advice to say, hey, reach out to mentors, reach out to others in the community that might be in a similar spot. And that would be my advice to people now. But yeah, I pretty much dove right in, not knowing what I was getting into, but luckily it's worked out.
It sure has. So Popy, do you find that people are coming to you now and saying, I have this idea, or I'd like to do this? What advice would you have for them around that? If they were going to, literally, you're an entrepreneur who started up an organization. So what advice would you have for them? What are like the top 2 or 3 things that you'd say for someone who might decide that they want to dive in as well?
Do your research. Don't overanalyze, though.
We talked about that, right? Don't overanalyze, right?
And when you're ready, just do it.
And just go for it.
Just go for it.
No plan B? Just the plan A?
No plan B. Definitely
Wow.
No plan B. Because I think, if you have a plan B, then you're almost already setting yourself up for failure.
Right. It's sort of like having a prenup.
Yeah, exactly.
In a way, right?
Divorce is inevitable.
It's inevitable.
If you have a prenup.
So let me ask you a question. Along the way, you've probably gained some efficiencies in terms of what you're doing, things you're doing better or doing differently, like you said about being flexible. If you thought about having a day where you could do anything you wanted because of those efficiencies that you've gained, how would you spend that day?
You mean personally, or it doesn't have to be work-related? Or
it could be anything that you dreamed of.
Anything. Okay.
That's a tough question, isn't it?
That's an interesting question. I would say, immediately the first thing that pops to my mind is traveling and volunteering.
Well, that seems to be really aligned with what you're doing anyway.
Yeah.
So there's a song by Jason Mraz that sticks in my mind just as you said that. And he talks about, why would you ever need to go away on a vacation when you're already doing what you love and you're in that space? It's true. So part of that is really aligned with what your response was there.
Yeah.
So I have a completely non-related question, just out of curiosity. So if you had a favorite Beatle, and perhaps you do, who is it and why?
Well, I would say Paul McCartney. I just thought he was the cutest of the bunch.
Well, that's a good answer. That's excellent.
Yeah.
So how can people reach you if they want to know more, obviously from the website at Charity Republic, but how else can they get a hold of you? Do you have an email address?
Yeah, absolutely. So they can visit my LinkedIn profile, write to me through LinkedIn, or feel free to email me at Popy, Popy, at charityrepublic.com.
Thank you so much for being our guest today.
Thank you.
You're such an inspiration, a wonderful person. You've done amazing things in our community, and you've really demonstrated that you can take that leap of faith, step outside of your comfort zone, do great things, and lead a very authentic life of purpose. So I'm delighted to know you and to have you be a dear friend. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
So just remember, everyone, that you can make these changes happen, and that even though someone might have a vision for you or a dream for you, that it might not necessarily be yours. And it's important to have those brave conversations and talk about where you want to go. And in Poppy's case, no plan B, dive in, go for it. Make sure that you do have at least one person that's there to support you and believe in you. There are many things that you could have done in this last half an hour, many choices that you could have made in terms of how you spent your time, and I'm absolutely delighted that you chose to spend your time with us here at Authentik You. We can be reached online at AuthentikYou.com, and that's Authentic with a K. We're also on Facebook, so if you have a chance to check that out and give us a like, that's wonderful. We also are on Twitter at AuthentikYou, and we'd love to hear from you. I would also like to take a moment to just thank the fabulous team here at Rogers, as well as our Authentik You team. We have people that are surrounding us that are experts in their field to help us look and feel great, not only on the inside, but on the outside. So David Boys is an interior designer who created our set. Susan Carlucci is our fabulous Authentik You image consultant. Elise Bierstock is our PR and media guru. Scott Keller is a hairstylist for us, and Jen Havinga is someone who does our makeup, and she's a fabulous esthetician. So I want to extend a thank you to all of them, and I hope you'll come back and join us for our next episode. We have a number of great guests who've really done amazing things in the community, inspiring and motivating things, and remember, they're just a click away, and we hope to see you back here at Authentik You very soon. Thank you.